Hey guys, just wanted to come online at my favorite time of the night, or rather day, whichever time zone I'm on, to say hi to all of you and maybe, not even maybe, share a few thoughts on how things are going and answer a few questions. I know I had mentioned that I would start, I would be putting out a series on my journey towards Wharton, which is of course the plan as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, but the application process, as most people know, is not easy, and this has been the most competitive year in a very, very long time, given the COVID pandemic, the deferrals from 2020, the huge upswing in applications, and of course the Indian applicant pool, which is competitive to say the least, if not the most. So given that I am what they, and this name was not assigned by me, it was assigned to me, so I'm going to go ahead and call myself a bit of a unicorn here. And you know, I've had a very interesting application process and definitely put in a lot of work, but learned a lot of things along the way, and would be happy to share it with any one of you who is planning to do, you know, wanting to go to the big schools maybe next year or the year after that. But just really quickly wanted to answer a few questions that have come to me on, people send me questions on a bunch of different forums. So I have email, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Quora, and all of that. So what I'm trying to do is to answer all of them in one place and, you know, share the video across all platforms, because there's no physical way I could actually answer them on like text. But let me take a few of them now. So I have someone who has asked me if I have scored a 311, which is a 148 verbal and a 163 quant, and I want to do my master's in computer science, can you guys suggest some universities? So my suggestion to anyone out there doing either the GRE or the GMAT is, you don't start with the score and then look for the university or the program. I would suggest you first look at your strengths and your interests and figure out what it is you want to do and where it is you want to do it, and then try to prep and, you know, get the score, you know, kind of achieve the score that it takes to actually get into those programs or those schools. So I wouldn't recommend this approach at all, to get a score and then see where you fit. That seems a little retroactive, logical to me. So that's just my feedback for that. I will take the next question. Okay. All right. So, ooh, yes, this is a good one. Sorry, just give me a quick second. Yes, so this is a good one. How can I get into Harvard with a scholarship for an MS from a tier 3 college in India? I'm ready to sacrifice anything for it. So before we get into sacrifices and what you have to do, one is it really, more than the school, especially at the master's level, you need to think about the program that you're applying to, and then figure out if you have the chops for it. And I wouldn't recommend going through the whole I'm willing to sacrifice. The question is, especially once you come to the master's level, you've already done a fair amount which with your profile, which can't actually be changed. So you can only add to that and make your application stronger. So I would suggest, you know, obviously your standardized test scores are important, and any leadership roles or leadership roles if you're going the MBA route, or if you want to go MS, then obviously research papers that you've written, people that you've collaborated with, recommendations from other professors. This is the kind of thing that will make your application stronger. But I think it's very hard to say if a university will accept you or not definitively. I think the internet or people like, say, myself with some experience and having gotten into Wharton for the fall can say is that there are certain benchmarks and stats that would be great if you fell into those buckets, but at the end of the day, your application is only as strong as what it is you've done, intend to do, and the clarity of your vision going forward. And also, one thing which you do not ever have in your control is the strength of the competition and the applicant pool that applies along with you. So that is something that whatever be the application cycle, you do not have control over that. You can only do the best that you can do. So I would not be able to. But just to specifically wrap up that question on a tier 3 college, it really depends on what the university is. Tier 3 is a very generic term. You haven't given me any information, so I don't know which college, I don't know which program. And it really depends because, are you first in your class, or are you 5th or 10th or last, or are you an exceptional scholarship student? Like that, I do really need a lot more context before I can answer a question about whether you can get into Harvard or Wharton or any of these schools with or without a scholarship. So I'm going to need to know more about your background. So that is the next question. I can take a couple more here. Yes, this is a very interesting one. So somebody has reached out and said, I have a GRE score of 317. So the split is 165 quant and 152 verbal, and a 1.5 AWA score. Can I get admission into a US university? Now, the United States is a very big country, and there are many there are many universities and many programs, but I will give you my perspective from a GRE standpoint. While your split, 317 is not terrible. It's not phenomenal either. But then again, you haven't specified which university you want to go to. So you've just said any US university. So if it's any university, then 317 is okay. The problem with this particular score, though, is your AWA, which is at a 1.5. Now that is a little on the scary side because any kind of US education depends heavily on your ability to write and your ability to put a coherent, cohesive argument together, whatever subject you are studying. So a 1.5 AWA on a total of 6 is very low and will definitely concern the school that you may not be able to put your thoughts together well, either in an individualized environment or in a collaborative environment. So even though the 317 is okay and you would get away with it, I don't think you'll get away with the AWA score. So my only advice to you the person is, I don't want to take names here, so I'm just going to answer the question generically, but if you are listening, since you are the one who sent me the question, I would definitely suggest that you take the test again. You got a 317 the first time. I think if you study a little bit harder, you would be able to cross 325. It's not impossible. So I would say work on your 165 quant is fine. I think if you just work on your verbal, because that's where the issue is. And I would definitely say practice your AWA, because 1.5 is just, and especially if you're an international student, they're going to look for you to cross at least a 4. So 1.5 is a ways away from that. But my recommendation to brush up on that is get somebody to coach you, get somebody to correct your practice essays, the issue and the argument. The good news is that the GRE does provide a bank of essay questions, like about 400 or 500 of them, if I'm not mistaken, and these are the ones that get rotated throughout the test. So you're not really going to get like a huge surprise if you go through all the questions and try to at least practice bullet points. My suggestion would be to practice your essay writing within a timed circumstance, which is usually the concern. So that is my advice. I can take one more question. So yeah, just to wrap that previous one up, I suggest that you go ahead and retake the test. So, ooh, yes, this is a fairly similar question as well, but I'm glad I kind of got to take these two together. This is when the person, yes, this conversation is for what? Good question, Mr. Raj Green Chili. Okay, so Raj, this conversation, I actually get a lot of questions on my application. I recently got admitted into the Wharton MBA program during a pretty competitive admission cycle. So, and I got multiple scholarships from multiple schools. I actually got admitted to 8 schools with 7 scholarships. So, I mean, it's more, I mean, it was, so let's just say I know how to do this. So I get a lot of questions from people who are trying to do the same thing or who have similar goals in the upcoming years. So the purpose of this live is to answer a few of the questions that I get, which I'm trying to do whenever I have the time. So that is the purpose of this conversation. Krish, thank you for that. There is no way I answered this question 2 or 3 years back, because I only started my Quora account about 6 to 8 months ago. So there is no way that actually happened, but you must have seen my answers, my Quora answers from before, but they're not from 3-4 years ago, because I only planned to do this, to take on this journey about a year back. But another question which was related to the previous one is that this is a good one, because somebody has said that they have a GRE score of 327 with a verbal of 157, a quant of 170, but an AWA of 2 points. Is it a good score? Now, here's the problem with this. Your quant is great, 170, perfect score, so it looks like your math is really strong. Hi, Afreen, good to see you, and you do not get to make fun of me because I am seriously answering some questions now. So, yeah, so your 170 quant is great, but verbal 157 is fine as well, but I don't think a 2 points or an AWA is going to get you to where you want to go. So it's unfortunate because your raw score, I mean, your 327 is good enough. I wouldn't really stress about it, but 2 points on the AWA, especially as an international student, is not, is going to throw some big concerns at any admissions committee, whichever be the program that you are applying for. So I would go ahead and request you to retake that test. So that may not be the answer you wanted to hear, but I do believe the AWA is extremely important because it shows your command over the language and your ability to communicate and to go ahead and collaborate in a classroom environment or even put a good research paper together. So I understand that this conversation isn't for all of you, so whoever is interested can go ahead and stay on, and whoever isn't is welcome to drop off. But this is something that I committed to doing for all of my followers, people who send me questions, and I have actually been a little remiss in answering these questions on time. So I have promised that I'm going to do this every day, at least during the lockdown, to get it all done. So I'll take one more question, which is okay. So this is an interesting one. I have a decent percentage in my 12th of 78%. Is there a chance of getting into US universities with scholarship if I get a perfect SAT score and an IELTS score? Now, hi, Deepan. Deepan, did you want to join this live? Okay. I don't, are you, okay, I'll go ahead and let you in.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi. Do you have any questions? Talking about?
Nothing.
Or say hello.
Nothing, ma'am.
Nothing. Hi. Okay, great. So, well, actually, that makes sense because that I do not think that visitor was for any of the topics that I am currently talking about. So, yes, so someone is asking me if I have a decent percentage in my 12th of 78%. Is there a chance of getting into US universities with scholarship if I get a perfect SAT score and IELTS score? So here there are two or three problems with this question. Actually, not problems with the question, more like problems with the solution that I have at hand. Now, see, 78% in the 12th, especially from a competitive Indian pool of applicants, is not very competitive at all. So that is something that you're going to have to explain to your college and as to why they should take you in the first place. But I am here, let me be clear, assuming that you are going to be applying to a premium university and not just any school. So if it's any school, then I mean, you know, you can always apply and what happens is what happens. But I mean, if you're an international student and trying to go overseas, my assumption would be that you would try to go to a school, of some repute. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that. So 78% is not good. So is there a chance of getting into US universities with scholarship? Now, scholarship if I get a perfect SAT score and IELTS score. So here's my question. If you only got a 78% in your 12th grade, what is the assumption that you will get a perfect SAT score and a perfect IELTS score? The reason I am saying, I mean, I'm obviously at the master's level, so I took the SATs a very long time ago, but I will comment about the IELTS, which I took very recently, and I did get a band 9, which is a perfect score, but I will be very honest, it is not a very simple job unless you have, not just have a good command over the English language, but a good command over the test itself. So yeah, so I think it's hard for me to answer this question with the supposition that you will get a perfect SAT score or a perfect IELTS score. From what I can see from your 12th grade marks is that you have a lot more prep to do before you get to that point. But if you do get perfect scores, then I'm sure you would be eligible for an admit, and the scholarship is obviously a different game because there are two kinds of scholarships. There are need-based scholarships and there are merit-based scholarships. So if you were somebody with need, you would have to demonstrate that, and if you got perfect scores in these two standardized tests, then I'm sure it would warrant a merit scholarship. But again, a little vague and a little too much assumption there. Nikki, I'm going to answer your question now. How to get into a premium executive course with my experience and hands-on experience without formal top business school education. See, let me tell you one thing, guys. So executive programs are a little bit simpler than formal full-time MBA programs at top schools because the competition for full-time MBA is extremely tight and you cannot bypass any of the standardized tests or the work experience or the essays or any of those things. But if you are looking for a premium executive education, I mean, you will still need a pretty compelling application. Nikki, I would be happy to answer your question if you tell me what your undergraduate degree was in and in what field you've been working in since then and for how long. So, I mean, there are some standardized components to both executive education applications as well as full-time MBA where, I think the only thing that's optional with executive, if I'm not mistaken, is the test. But that isn't the case for all schools. So when you say premium, I would like to know what schools you're looking at. And you don't have to, but to answer that specific question, you don't have to have a background in business education to apply for an executive program. Like you can have a background in whatever be your bachelor's degree or the business that you're doing or the industry that you're involved with. So You just need to have a strong application and a very, very strong why. So the big reason that people look for is the why, is why MBA, why executive education. And I think the narrative and the essays and recommendations that you put together or get from the people you work with or have worked with is extremely important. So with that, I will wrap up this very quick impromptu session of a mix of questions that I've gotten, but I have close to at least 200 queries left to get through. So let me try and do a little more of this over the next few nights, and we'll see how much we can get through. And maybe I will put up some, maybe a promo about this on my, on the rest of my, on my Insta feed. So guys, so people who are actually interested and want to get their questions answered can log in at the witching hour and get it done. Okay, it was a pleasure seeing all of you, and I promise to have my YouTube series out soon. But until then, we will keep trying to get through the content as soon as is possible. So I wish you all a very, very good night. Okay, so Nikki, I'm going to deal with your follow-up question. I'm doing one from IIM now. I want to do one strategic management course from HBS. HBS is a very different beast altogether, and even their executive education is competitive. So why don't you DM me with your details, and maybe we can do a live tomorrow, and I will take up your situation separately and let you know what you can perhaps look at doing. Is your IIM now course now, I assume, is by correspondence? So you can go ahead and specify to me what it is you're doing and what is your eventual goal. So it really depends on what it has to line up with what your goals are. So Krish, yes, next year, I'm not leaving for Wharton next year. I'm leaving for Wharton in August. So it is a lot sooner than I think most people. It's a lot sooner than I've expected. So to be honest, really exciting news today. I've started connecting with my future classmates, and Wharton has an amazing setup in terms of its infrastructure with Slack and headquarters and all of that stuff. So we've all started meeting and greeting each other and kind of getting ready to meet in real time in August. So that is what is going on. But Nikki, I would be happy to answer your questions in more specifics. Just go ahead and DM me, and we can maybe jam on a on Insta Live or on a live session tomorrow. But I will put up a posters. Yes, we will definitely meet before I leave. There is no Krish, that is pretty much the case with all of the premium B schools. Like once the rounds, there are 3 rounds of admissions, round 1, 2, and 3. So once these admission rounds are done, the schools start to facilitate students to get to know each other and kind of come together, because we're all going to be classmates, colleagues, and maybe future business partners in the future. So we know that the biggest and best of entrepreneurship ventures get started at business schools. So that's what I think we're all looking forward to. So I think it's more a question of how the system works. And I think all of us are extremely excited to meet each other and get started on this next chapter of our lives. So with that, I will love you all and leave you, but we will pick this up tomorrow when we have, I mean, there's no dearth of questions, but I hope a lot more of you join tomorrow when we get on this, and we will get this party started. Okay? All right. Good night.